So let's look at some examples of how basis levels and changes in basis levels can affect hedging results. So let's go back to that initial example that we looked at previously. So let's just say on July 15th, again, there's 500 tons of production that a farmer is anticipating harvesting in the fall. The fall cash price bid is $485 per ton. He sells them the 25 November futures contracts at $500 per ton. The basis is 15 under. So again, in our example, in September, the farmer harvests 500 tons of canola and goes and sells his 500 tons of canola, physical canola at the elevator. The cash price is $445 per ton, lower than what he had hoped to achieve when he was looking back at prices in July. But he had his futures contract in place, and so he sells the futures at $500 per ton, buys the futures back at $460 per ton, and so there's a net gain of $40 per ton. Once again, a final cash price of $485 per ton. So in this particular case, again, notice that the basis hasn't changed. So let's see what happens when the basis narrows or improves or strengthens by $10 per ton. So in this case, at the time of delivery, the futures price is $460 per ton. So the market has fallen $40 per ton in the futures. But the cash price actually at the elevator is $455 per ton. So in this case, the cash price is only $5 under the futures, or 5 under basis. Again, a $10 improvement from the $15 under when looking back in July. So the cash price that he receives for his physical canola is $455 per ton. Because he sold the futures at $500 per ton and bought it back at $460 per ton, once again there is a $40 gain on the futures hedge portion. When we combine the two pieces together, the $455 cash price plus the $40 futures gain, there's a $495 per ton final net price. This is actually $10 higher than initially anticipated, and this $10 improvement reflects the fact that the basis has improved during the window of time from when the hedge was put on until the cash grain was physically delivered into the elevator. What are the implications if basis widens? So again, looking at the same example, let's just say that once again the futures have fallen $40 per ton. So the futures were sold at $500 per ton. They were bought back at $460 per ton. So there's a net gain in the hedge account of $40 per ton. However, if the basis in this particular case is widened out or weakened to $25 under the futures, his cash price would be $435 per ton. So again, the action on the future side is exactly the same, but in this case, the cash price that he receives for his canola is $435 per ton. We add on our $40 gain in the futures account or from the hedge, so the final net price is $475 per ton, which is $10 lower than what initially anticipated. Now in this example, again, the fact that he had the hedge on in place helped reduce some of those losses in terms of the market, but he received $10 less than what he initially hoped, once again, reflecting the fact that basis levels weakened or widened from when the hedge was put on until the cash price was locked in. So let's look what happens when we combine both basis and carrying charges. So in a typical year or a normal year, we tend to see basis levels appreciate from fall or during the harvest time when markets typically come under some pressure as we move on into winter and spring. We also typically in most years see carry in the futures market. So for example, where the November contract price is at a lower value than January or March or May. And the combination of the two can make a big difference to the net final price. Now to a certain extent, this can also be done with forward contracts in terms of perhaps buyers offering higher prices for delivery in deferred windows, and the principles are the same. But one of the advantages of doing this to the futures market is it does help increase some of our flexibility. So think, for example, in terms of selling futures when basis levels are wide, and we can feel with some confidence that they will appreciate over a period of time, and there's a real opportunity to get some additional gains from hedging in the futures market and waiting for basis levels to improve. So let's look at this example. If we assume that 500 tons of canola is production for the fall, there's a fall cash price bid of $455 per ton and the futures price is $500 per ton. In this case, the basis level is $45 under the futures. In most cases in Western Canada, this would be a very wide or weak or poor basis level. I should note that basis levels are a very local thing, so you need to understand what's happening in your own local market and what historical patterns are. Basis levels in Lethbridge or Yorkton or the Peace River region or Western Manitoba all behave differently, so you need to understand what's happening in your own local market. But in this case, if $45 under is a very wide basis, if you might normally expect a basis level of, say, 20 under, for example. And if we see a basis of 45 under, and you usually, typically, normally would expect a basis level of 20 under, we can have a pretty good level of confidence that eventually, at some point, basis levels will narrow. And if we're confident that basis levels will narrow, we can lock in the futures price, wait for those basis levels to improve, and try and capture some additional gain on the value of our canola. So in this particular case, we harvest the 500 tons of canola. We sell the November futures at $435 per ton cash price. That's the value in September. The futures market has fallen $40 per ton in this particular example. Okay, so in this particular case, if the futures is $460 per ton, the cash price is $435 per ton. There's a $20 improvement in basis levels. In this example, let's just say that basis levels have improved from $45 under to $25 under. Perhaps still not quite to where it is in a normal year, but a substantial improvement nonetheless. So if we look at how the net result of this example is, our final cash price is $435 per ton. That's what we receive at the elevator. But we saw a $40 drop in the futures market, again, because our hedge was in place. So we sell the futures at $500. We bought them back at $460 for a net gain of $40 per ton on our hedge position. When we combine that with our cash price, there's a final net price of $475 per ton. Once again, $20 higher than in the previous example, or what the expectation was when the basis level was 45 under. And this is all because of an anticipated basis gain that we'll say is somewhat predictable, because basis levels were extremely weak. This is just a move towards more normal levels. And so we can have some confidence that there's maybe some additional basis gains to be had. And this is one of the really good opportunities to be hedging in the futures market, as opposed to just doing a forward cash sale when we have some confidence that basis levels can improve. One final point I think we can also make is that the advantage of doing this through the futures market, as opposed to, for example, doing a futures first contract with a grain company, is the fact that we have the ability to shop around to that company that's going to offer the best basis level. You may, for example, be in a situation where the basis levels are weak. You do a futures first contract with a company, and the general strategy might be correct in the sense that maybe futures prices soften and we see basis levels improve, but it might also be possible that that company that you do that contract with may not be the most competitive at the time that you want to sell your grain. Doing it in the futures market allows you to shop that grain around, to be able to physically sell it to the company that wants it most, and there might be an additional $5 or $10 or $15 per ton just by having the ability to sell your canola to the company that wants it the most and is going to compete the hardest for it, which may not be the company that you did the initial futures first contract with. So there's some additional flexibility in doing it yourself through the futures market and trying to take advantage of as much gain as possible through an improvement in basis levels.